Hey guys, it's Static
Missed you here, guys.
and today we're going to be doing some scary story readings.
For a scary story posted by you, Dixie, from 7 years ago.
Just make sure to
Hit the subscribe button and like the video and comment down below what you think. So let's get into going, guys. As it's nearly Halloween, how about we share some creepy stories? I'll go first. When I was about 13, my mom and dad invited around our previous neighbor from the block of flats we lived in until I was 5 anyways. I'd been sent to bed, but I could still hear everyone talking about this and that. Until the woman's neighbor said, "Hey, Dixie, Mom, do you remember when Dixie used to complain that there was someone in his room? Well, that a family that just moved in to the floor above who had a 3-year-old son, he's complaining of the exact same thing Dixie did."
This creeped me out. I had no recollection of any of this. So the next day, I asked my mum. Her first reaction was, "You don't remember?" Then she told me about all the weird stuff that used to happen. Footsteps up and down the hall, and things going missing and stuff. She said the final thing to happen was when she was listening to a record one day. When it started to slow down, like someone was holding a finger gently on the platter, till it finally came to a stop. My mum said she snapped at this point and started shouting, "Will you leave us the F alone?" As soon as she said this, the record went straight back to playing normally, and we never experienced anything again. I've never experienced anything like that since, and these days I'm quite skeptical of such stories, but I believe my mum. Strangest thing is how I found out about it from someone else 10 years ago experiencing something similar.
So this is a Reddit story from Halloween is upon us now. In with our friends and drink there on the weekends or at night. Where we didn't have any classes. We usually stayed on the first floor on the one wing of dorms. One closet to the back entrance. We didn't spray because the place was dirty and had cobwebs.
So one night we were drinking in the one room we set up with tables and chairs that we seized. We were all together. Nobody was missing when somebody very close to our room and very loudly screamed, "Who the F is there?" To which one of us drunkenly responded, "Who the F do you think it is?" A very confused voice responded back, "You're not coming with me, then, John?" They sounded like they were walking away from us towards the center of the building, away from the stairwell. Incidentally, none of us were named John. A few minutes later, we could hear on the floor above us there was a giant crash. This got creepy. We all run up the stairs and make our way to the hallway above. It was just there. Nobody else was just there. You couldn't see the wheel tracks on the floor because it was dusty as things, but there were no other footprints around besides our own. Without getting our stuff. No stopping, no getting our booze, turning off our radio, or turning off our battery-powered lantern.
We always have to get back and get our S back. We waited a few days. A friend of mine and I went to the evening to go get it. First, we went to the window to see if we can see any significant stuff out there. My friend looked in. I didn't. He said he saw someone in the doorway. I thought he was acting retarded because of what happened the other night. We sneaked to make sure the room and got our S back. Somewhere down the center of the building, we head to the door and shut the door. It was completely dark that way. We heard the door close and open, and we don't wait to find out what the F happened about that.
So I'm not a person who believes in supernatural stuff, and the same goes for my friend. We decide that we need to figure out what the hell is going on with this building. So about 6 of us devise a pretty easy to go with plan. We circle the building one night and check all the doors and windows to make sure they were all locked up. Then we went to our usual entrance, left 2 people on the inside of it to make sure nobody came in or out. Then the rest started to go from dorm to dorm room, checking to make sure nobody else was there. We'd go, "Hello?" and obviously get no response. We make it through our hallway, we hang out and our tensions ease up. One of the people at the outside door moves up to us. where we stopped, and we go to a second floor where the filling cabinet was, because it's back at the original footprints. Tension in the group rise. We started doing the whole hello and no response thing again. We get about halfway through the hall, and one of us gets the idea of saying, "Oh, come on, it's your friend Johnny." A giant thud below us, muffled screams from the two we left as lookouts, probably. Nobody could have been there because we went through those same rooms, and we would have noticed somebody else slamming a door right behind us. It turns into a race to get back out the way we came, past the doors that were just slammed. As we get into the hallway, we can hear doors opening and closing in a way that something was coming towards us from the center of the building again. We get few hundred yards away before we all stop running and make sure we all made it.
We also found another place to hang out after that. I'm torn down and now, and the real dorms is built over it.
I forgot to mention something else. We never put it together. That this was never a dorm, even though the hallways were really wide. And some of the rooms would have windows next to doors, like an office usually does. That was the type of room we hung out in, because it was a bigger room. Well, once in a while we would notice that the window would get foggy, like when you breathe down on a window and it gets foggy. But it was always on the hallway side of a window, like if somebody was looking at us through the glass and watching us. We never put that together until after the two who were fleeing in the terror incident. Good to bring up old memories like that. I didn't feel like sleeping anyways tonight.
That story about dorm. Let's see if we can read another story.
7 years ago.
Okay, this is 100% true, even though most people I tell in life doesn't believe me.
When I was really little, my parents would let me stay up late on the weekends and watch TV until I fell asleep. I really loved these times, and I would never stay up later than anybody else just because I could. Well, one night I was almost asleep on the couch when I heard a noise on our front porch. It was the sound of our old-fashioned porch swing moving back and forth. I was a little bit scared, so I crept towards the bay windows of my living room and peeked out towards the porch. Sitting on my porch swing was an older woman, probably in her 50s, wearing nothing but a nightgown, covered in blood and holding a huge kitchen knife.
I flipped out and immediately ran screaming into my parents' room, but too terrified to say words. My parents saw that I was upset, but I did finally able to tell them what I saw. My dad got really angry and told me that it was just a dream, and to go back to bed. I refused and kept crying and screaming until he had enough and snatched my arm and dragged me towards the front door. There was nothing there. I kicked and screamed all the way to make him stop, but he kept pulling me. Finally, we got to the door. He unlocked it, swinged it open. See, there's nothing. To this day, I've never looked so fear and shock in his face. The woman turned, stared at both of us, and slowly stood up with the knife.
My dad slammed the door shut and got my mum to call the police while he went and got his gun. He went back to the door with a 12 gauge and cracked the door enough to stick the barrel out. He asked her what she was doing, and she said, "Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me." My dad told her that the police were coming, and she freaked out, grabbed the knife, and walked away. The police found her 15 minutes later trying to break into one of our neighbors' houses.
I never slept in that living room ever again.
Edit. Oh yeah, I forgot that after she left, my dad called and warned my crazy uncle who lived next door what was happening. Apparently he was waiting on his front porch with a shotgun when she walked by. He pointed at her and just said, "Keep moving."
B. I just talked to my mom and she said that they never found out the whole story, but apparently she was crazy and off her medications. Her and her husband got into a fight. She tried attacking with a knife, but didn't seriously hurt him. When he got her out of the house, she started cutting herself, trying to commit suicide, or to make it look like her husband did it. The police never talked to us about it, and that's what they heard from the woman's neighbors.
This was submitted by Dancing in the Dark 7 years ago.
Something similar happened to my friend of mine. It was about 1 a.m. and he heard a noise outside his front door. His front door yard was really dark, so he looked through the peephole rather than opening the door. He couldn't see anything, but could tell there's something through the peephole. He decided to open the door slowly. As soon as he saw an older lady who face was covered in blood, only wearing a t-shirt, no underwear or pants, tried to run into his house. He slammed the door on her and called the cops. She was waiting for us. She kept looking at the people. Every so often, she would scurry back and forth down his lawn. I wasn't there, but I pictured a looking like alien at the birthday party in signs. So the cops finally showed up and detained the woman and tried to get to the bottom of the story. It turned out the woman was his neighbor and she was extremely drunk. She had been drinking and locked herself in her house and tried to get back by breaking the windows with her in her face. Side note, the neighbor no longer calls the cops when my friend has parties. And that's the story.
Okay.
This story was deleted. We're not sure who made it, but it was from 7 years ago. Okay.
My university was bisected by a big lake, with a bridge going across it with an island gazebo in the middle. One night I was walking down the side of the lake, about to cross the bridge to go to a dorm on the other side. As I was walking down the sidewalk, I noticed some kid in a grey/white hoodie, with the hood up, walking across a section of a bridge on my side of a gazebo, towards my sidewalk. I didn't think anything of him until I walked by a big tree which blocked my line of sight for a second. When I got past the tree, I happened to glance back at the bridge, and there was no one there. He couldn't have possibly walked off the bridge. He would have to go right by me to get there. And if he had turned around in a split second, I couldn't see him. He wouldn't have had any time to get all the way back to the island either. He was just gone.
This gets creepier. About a year later, I was about to tell a story to a friend who has been abroad that semester. He never heard it, and before I even got up to see what I saw, he cut it in. Wait, you see that guy in the hood disappear? Yes, he had seen something like that in his freshman year. Effing weird. I hated walking across the bridge alone from that day on. Next one is submitted by Lucina Turn Poster 7 years ago.
I'm not sure how freaky it is, since it's not paranormal or anything, but when I was about 7 years old, I went on a walk with my babysitter. We were walking back a mile or so to my house on a fairly busy road, and about halfway there she says we should play Simon Says. At first we walk faster, then skip, and then jog lightly, and then she says, Simon Says run as fast as you can. Simon Says turn here. I was slightly confused, but played along. As we turned down the driveway, I looked back and saw two guys chasing after us, one with a bat, and the other with a knife. We ran up to a house, and some old people living there let us in, thankfully.
At the time, I didn't grasp how effed up that it was, that we were getting chased, and I still had no clue where they were.
When I was younger, we frequently visited my grandparents around holidays. Even though we didn't live in the same town, my aunt lived 2 houses down from my grandparents. The lady in the house between was creepy. She was a large woman, over 6 feet. She wore logging chains around her neck, a dress, and work boots. The only time I remember seeing her outside was either in the garden, in the back, or when she was washing the outside of her house, scrubbing the actual building. She did this often. During these times, she would yell at us kids and call us all kinds of things. She would tell us the devil would be coming for us. The adults told us to leave her alone and to avoid her. We would run the distance between my aunts and my grandparents because when you passed by, she was watching out of the windows. It was creepy, and we never went alone.
One Halloween, one of my cousins dared us to go trick-or-treating at our house. I remembered how scared I was, but I didn't want to be the chicken. Plus, going with the group, one of us rang the doorbells and there was a lot of banging noises in the house. Suddenly, the door slammed, and when she entered the door, she served head in her hand and went screaming. Dad told us it was just a Halloween prop, and we knew we shouldn't be bothering her, and deserved to be scared.
About a month later, my parents got a phone call that the lady had tried to kill my aunt while she was bringing in groceries and had my young cousin in her arms. The lady had one of them rope saws and had come up behind my aunt with it. She put it over her head and around her neck and proceeded to saw. My aunt naturally flipped and started kicking the door. My uncle came and beat the lady down with a fire poker.
The police investigated and revealed that the woman had been digging tunnels under her home, which had been coming up under my aunt's, my grandparents', and another neighbor's house. She had been bringing up dirt and putting the raised up in the bed gardens. She worked at a shrine or some sort of underground where she served people's heads around. My aunt survived that, by the way, but has a long scar across her neck.
This is the last one we're gonna read. This one was by I Hate Addicts 7 years ago.
Firstly, my wife is also a Redditor and has been severely traumatized by our recent experience. She's not talking about it, so to prevent anyone from sending a message, this is a throwaway account.
My wife and I bought our first house on February of 2010. We immediately fell in love with it as soon as we laid eyes on it. It had everything we wanted and a few extras. For the first month, everything was great. Lots of painting and decorating, getting it just the way we wanted. Then weird things started to randomly happen. First, it was small things, like things upstairs being moved, put in completely different rooms than where they belonged. I chalked it up to my wife just forgetting to put things back where they belonged. The house also started to creak pretty loudly. This is a fairly new house, so I just figured it was probably a settling, as most houses tend to do.
One day, wife and I was preparing dinner in the kitchen. We stared right up next to the kitchen entrance, so any noises upstairs were clearly audible in the kitchen. I turned off the water at the sink, and as soon as I did, we both heard a cough. We have no kids, and no one was visiting. The window were all shut. The television was not on. This sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the cold blood running to my face. I took my wife, and she too had gone pale and looked in absolute fear. Someone was in our house, and they were upstairs. I quickly grabbed the sharpest knife I could find and found my wife to call the police. I walked to the bottom of the steps and stood there quietly and heard a loud pop/creak sound, just as like one of the noises heard in my house. My hands were shaking. My wife was whispering to the 911 operator, telling us this might be a robber in a house.
The police arrived in minutes. Thankfully, they had been patrolling nearby. The officer walked slowly up the stairs. Gun drawn, he calls out, "This is the police. Is anyone upstairs?" No response. I'm right behind him, walking up the stairs. We look into the first bedroom and closet. Empty. No one in the half bath either. Last room is the office where I have my PC. No one in the room or the closet. I felt tension ease away and felt like a complete tool, making this officer search my house only to find nothing. We turned to walk out of a room and right above us. Creak! I just about shat bricks. In my house, only in my office closet, there is an attic access. The officer pulls the steps down and calls out again out. Is anyone up there? This is the police. No response. He turns on his flashlight and peeks his head up.
Finds a man in his 40s, kneeling down the attic, looking at him. Guns drawn, he tells the man to come out and put his hand behind his head. They arrested the man. He didn't say a single word the whole time and would not look at anyone in the eye. He scuffled, hurrying, looking, and had dirty clothes on. Me and my wife freaked out. I didn't think either of us fully gotten over it. After questioning the man at speech, we found that he was homeless. We found messy in his house. While still on the market, he said the doors were unlocked, so we stayed there. Apparently, the rater have forgotten the door was locked after showing someone in the house. He said that when people would come into the house, he would hide on the second floor. We bought the house this guy was living in the whole month without us really knowing. It started freaking me out just still thinking about it. Shrug it off those goosebumps in the night. You could have a homeless man living in your attic. And that's their story.
We're gonna do one more for you guys. So, this one was by Deeb Landon 7 years ago.
When I was a freshman in college, I was on a film shooting near Boston on Route 66. We were shooting on the property of the cafe known for the film Baghdad Cafe. This property was an abandoned motel attached to it, which is where shootings unbelievably bad horror movie films.
The motel's floor were full of papers, something I initially figured was a relic from the past, while the motel was actually doing business. A while into the shoot, we started picking up the papers and started reading them.
They were handwritten letters from the 17s, perhaps never sent. They were addressed to dozens of different people, starting off normal, going to describe really effed up things. This guy literally had some demon. He was talking about them, hey, we're watching him alike, writing guns and messed up silver letter comically.
Meanwhile, outside the motel, there was a shortage container with "Keep Out" spray painted on it. Naturally, we were curious. There was a hole in the side, and someone reached in and pulled out some documents. Among them was a letter on government typeface. I think it was the VA, telling the person who wrote those crazy letters that he was unknowingly a participant of some tests of hallucinogenic substances while he was in the army.
This whole time, there was a room abandoned in the motel that was sealed off, that was strictly forbidden from entering. The windows that covered the plywood, the door barricaded shut. It smelled like death. Seriously, the worst thing I've ever encountered in my life. And that's that story.
So yeah, guys, hope you're enjoying your Halloween.
And stay safe, guys.